We are back here on the drive at oddschecker.com/US talking more PGA Tour action. Andy, my boy, he has been on fire through the swing season, cashed a beautiful EVR 80-1. 80-1. EVR chalk for the community really comes through. Great to see an unconscious back nine. He pretty much just blacked out coming home there. Down 2, I think, on 16T to win by 2 without the other guy even making a bogey. Like, what did he do? He blacked out. He blacked out with birdies. Andy, take yourself a moment, and then I'll tee you up here. Butterfield, Bermuda. It's a swamp field this week in a beautiful location. So what are we to make of this course, and who should we be looking at?
Yeah, thank you for the kind words, buddy. I've long been a proponent of the fall swing for golf bettors. I think that this is an opportunity that if you're willing to do the legwork, there are opportunities here, right? Like there are a lot of people that completely neglect this portion of the golf season. In total fairness, by the way, too, if this wasn't my full-time job, I would probably be neglecting it as well in terms of actually watching these events. It's very rare that this will catch a screen over an NFL game for me during this time of year, although EVR's back nine, as you mentioned, did cause me to switch over for a little bit on Sunday afternoon. That was a tremendous and very profitable performance for both of us. Cool to see EVR get a little bit emotional as well. He's had an interesting road and an interesting career path, but this is it's the events. They're kind of, you get what you put into these, right, Geoff? Like if you're willing to go deep dive, Ryan Palmer's proximity numbers from 125 yards and in, like you may have an opportunity here to make a whole lot of money. That is sometimes a lot harder when the market gets a lot more saturated from January to September during major season and elevated event season. I am one of the psychos that chooses to do that. I would not recommend that path for all. But once again, Geoff, I think we've got a fun opportunity at another resort course down in Bermuda. Very wind affected, variable tournament, but not the best field, probably still the weakest that we have seen this fall swing. But I've made like 5 bets already, so let's talk about them.
Andy's made 5 bets. Don't give any names, but just give me the odds, like ranging from what odd to what odd.
30 to 70.
30 to 70.
That mid-tier range that we love.
Okay, I've made a bet. I got one bet in at 40-1 thus far. If I'm smart, I should let Andy talk me into others. So looking at the grids here, there's only 3 golfers who come in under 20-1. Adam Scott, Ashke, and Brendan Todd. Scott in and of itself is probably an interesting debate. I mean, once upon a time, he how do you put this? He jokes like only, they play 50 events, only 8 of them actually matter. There was a time where he only played in events that mattered. I'm quite bullish on Scott, not for this week, and would be honest, to see that the entire calendar year flipped and guys like Glover and Day and Justin Rose found the winner's circle and not Scott. Like if you told me something weird was going to happen with some old guys at Christmas, I'd have been all over Scott. I didn't mean to litigate him, but I think he lives in the Bahamas, so not the biggest jaunt for him. No interest. A lot of words for me to say no interest in anyone at the top. I'm sure Akshay, sorry, I'll get that. I'll nail it. Might be the popular one. The Todd father at under 20-1. Even if I thought he was going to win, I don't even think my finger could double click it. So total pass on me with the big favorites.
Me as well. I think the next tier is a lot more intriguing in my opinion. I will say, I think you could make a case that 22-1 on Lucas Glover is the best number out of that group. Like if you told me that Glover was the tournament favorite, I wouldn't really have any real arguments. I mean, Glover has won twice in his last 6 or 7 starts still. And, a lot of these guys ahead of him on the leaderboard, guys like Lucas Herbert, Brendan Todd, haven't accomplished anything remotely close to what Glover has done in his last, 6 starts. That run that he was on, it still happened, within the last 4 or 5 months. So I do think if I'm going to go in any direction at the top, it would probably be with Lucas Glover. With that being said, I'm with you. I skipped this top range. I started my first bet was Alex Smalley actually at 28-1. Now, Alex Smalley is a guy that we're both Duke guys. I've been following his career pretty closely. I always cite him as the guy that made me realize after one day of practice that I was not suitable to walk onto the Duke golf team. Just watching him hit on the rage made that decision to join a fraternity instead a very easy one for me. He is one of the better players on short Bermuda courses. Like Smalley has identified these types of golf courses as a strength for him early in his career. He's one of the biggest risers on Bermuda greens. He's second in this field in opportunities gained. He generates a lot of birdie opportunities for himself. He's already finished 16th and 17th in 2 appearances at this course. Geoff, Alex Smalley, I think, is going to win this week. I say that with a lot of probably overconfidence based on the success I've had this fall swing, but he's my guy in that 25 to 30 range. And actually, I should apologies for being long-winded, but I thought that I was going to get to talk about this guy in the next tier, but it looks like the odds on this guy are crashing quickly. So I would recommend, if you have interest in the guy that I'm about to mention, I would recommend acting sooner rather than later. I also bet Ben Griffin at 30-1. Showing on the odds checker grid, I see 25s. So, and I still like him down to 25, but those are my guys, Geoff. Smalley and Griffin, 28 and 30 were the 2 first bets that I made this morning.
Interesting. Smalley's a guy, I think we've been betting together a lot in the swing season. You've been hitting winners with other guys, not so much for me. So, Smalley and Pendrith would be the 2 better players that could get my money this week. I was on Pendrith last week at 50-1 to sometimes it's hard to swallow half the number, the number getting at least EVR's number cratered off a win. It's another thing when the guy you want to bet's numbers cratering and he doesn't win. But,
EVR withdrew, by the way.
Who?
FYI. EVR withdrew, by the way, which I think is pretty understandable, right?
So makes sense. No surprise there. So it's that boomer bust sort of Pendrith wagon that does have my attention. And if you do,
did you get him at 40, Geoff? Did you get Pendrith at 40
last week? What are we talking about? No.
Did you get Pendrith this week at 40? Because I was going to say best I'm seeing on Pendy's.
No, he's 25-1. I told you I did bet someone at 40-1. I have not named him yet. I'll get that out of the way right now. I bet Doug Gim.
Ooh.
Andy, I bet Doug Gim at 40-1. Obviously, it is all there. I feel like the short Bermuda course should suit him perfectly. We got to putt for dough. A lot of people smarter than me might play this with placings. That's not how I roll. So Doug Gim is the only bullet I have put in the chamber, but swimming around closer to the top would be Pendrith and Smalley. Pendrith and Smalley for me. Going farther back, Andy, he's still got, I think, a small handful, couple bets to tell us about. I will say this is where it gets interesting, because there are names, including some that we have already mentioned, north of 30-1. If my boy, last week's board just popped up on my screen, but you could make a case if you wanted to bet any of these guys at 50-1 in some respects that their win equity isn't any different than the dudes at 25-1 who've accomplished nothing.
Mm-hmm. I just think that you need to set all preconceived notions about what a guy's number should be at the Bermuda aside this week.
It's all relative. It's all relative to the field.
Yeah.
I mean, last week even had Aberg, Cam Young, Sahith.
Right.
There's a reason when I say, that's a big difference. It's not I think that's a much more respected top than this week.
Sure. And I was having this debate in one of my golf group chats this morning and I can use this as a transition to talk about the next guy bet. But one of my good friends was asking me, why are you betting Ryan Palmer at 40-1 at the Bermuda. And I laid out the case for him. One of the better wedge players in this field. This is a golf course that's very distinctive in where the approach shots are coming from. You basically have 6 big long iron shots and then 12 wedge shots. You combine inside 125 yards and over 200 yards, and Ryan Palmer is like the best in the field, right? But I use that point to illustrate the fact that he also has been incredible at like these shorter coastal courses like Waialae and Pebble Beach. But the point being is there's no rules this week. You can bet whoever you want. Hey, Stu Cink finishes 7th on the Champions Tour. You want to fire on him at 35-1. By all means, have your day in the sun, my friend. I'm going in the Ryan Palmer selection direction. You know, we saw the old guys, Matt Kuchar, show a little life at Worldwide Technologies. But Geoff, as we talk about all fall swing, it's like, if you have a guy, if you're seeing something in the numbers, there's really no argument that you can make about pricing this week, because everybody is coming in at pretty objectionable, disgusting numbers that you could argue in either direction are fair, unfair, whatever have you. It's all subjective.
And don't let anyone make fun of a number you're betting a guy when they bet Bo Hostler at 25-1 a week ago.
Right.
Like, you could bet, and I don't even know, like, people know I like Bo, so I'm allowed to say that. But that's just to the point, like, if you believe a guy is capable of winning a PGA tournament ever, like, you have in your mind said, no, this guy, like, I see something. This is almost the week. That's the week you got to bet those guys, even if it is 35-1. Like, if you're a Mark Hubbard truther, where's a better spot?
Yeah.
But going a little farther down here, Andy, I mean, you do see, I mean, we have seen guys just sort of, as you mentioned, like a Ryan Palmer, just wedge and putt this place to death. Right? Mm-hmm. Just wedge and putt it to death. And it almost doesn't matter what else is in your bag. As long as you are in any competent spot off the tee, you can almost hit your approach to a makeable putt range.
Sure. And there are a lot of guys that fall into that category as we dig a little bit deeper, farther down the board. Like, one of the first names that I think of that I have also bet at 60-1, when you mention wedges and putting, is Troy Merritt. You want to talk about a guy that raises his baseline on these types of courses where the formula is you're going to have a ton of approach shots inside 125 yards, and putting on Bermuda greens is one of the highest correlated skills. Like, give me Troy Merritt 10 times out of 10. So, you know, as you mentioned, once we get down here, there are a lot of guys that, haven't really proven themselves in any metric on the PGA Tour against this type of competition. But I mean, this is pretty much a Korn Ferry Tour field. So anybody above 60-1, like, I'm curious if you have any other names, but Merritt was the one that really stood out to me.
I mean, anyone you bet, I mean, like I say, you believe in a guy in a field like this, you should probably bet him. The caveat would be, like, you have to believe this guy, because multiple times in this tournament, you do have to go blackout to win.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what the guy who wins is going to have multiple unconscious, like, 9-hole stretches. That's the only way you can win. And I guess a lot of Korn Ferry players, resort course scoring is their bag. I don't know. In the swing season, Andy, I mean, obviously it all, like, you could do what you did last week and just play a litany of long shots, and there's more names because you're starting your card at like 60-1. But I've been just trying to, like, rock these three-man cards and bring home a winner. So for me at the moment, it is Doug Ghim, and I will tell you on Alex Smalley. Doug Ghim, Alex Smalley. I bet Alex Smalley way too much in the swing season to sort of not be here at an event that I do agree with you profiles quite well. And, if I bet him at 50-1, I feel like this field is, like, way easier than those 50-1 fields where I actually think 30-1. Totally. Well, Lucas Glover, in terms of a player who's accomplished something in recent time, that 22-1, I'd agree with you, is probably the fairest number here. I think the Smalley 30s are very fair.
Totally agree. And like I said, like you go down and look at the guys that he's priced around outside of Glover, a lot of them have I mean, very similar accomplishments to Alex Smaller, right? Like you're basically looking at that tier of Mark Hubbard, Taylor Pendrith, Ben Griffin,
My boy,
Range.
close call, Detry.
Yeah, I was going to say that was the only thing is like last guy to mention is like, how do you feel about Detry? Because I take your Pendrith and I feel like Detry is very, very similar profile who also has a runner-up finish here last week. So I imagine if you're circling the Pendrith wagon, you probably have some interest in Detry as well.
Yeah, anyone that knows me knows I do like me some TD. It'd be a hard number to swallow. And anyone who's truly followed him, there's no rhyme or reason to when he contends. Like I've seen him literally take lead tournaments with like the strongest PGA Tour player, like European fields. And I've seen him like play fantastic in the most jobber European fields you could ever imagine. And jobber PGA fields, they all seem to result in the same thing though, like T3, T2. Mm-hmm. But if you bet Thomas Detry, there will be a moment this week where he's like 6-1, 5-1 to win live. And you'll be so happy you're holding your 22-1.
Right. He always like, he'll be relevant in this tournament. I don't know when he'll be relevant. He may be relevant in this tournament on Thursday and irrelevant for the following 3 days, or you may blink and he's irrelevant for the first 3 days and somehow he's finishing T6, which is kind of the roadmap with Detry at most courses. So that's probably it for me. I kind of covered most of the guys that I wanted to cover. I'm circling around a couple other guys. Griffin, Smalley, Palmer, Merritt. The other two guys that I'm circling, I'm deciding between, God, this gets dark quickly, but Andrew Novak, Kevin Yu, those guys are in the 55 to 70 range as well, which is kind of hilarious to say. But my big bets are Smalley, Griffin, Palmer, Merritt.
Yeah. And for me thus far, Smalley, Doug McGim, just like you run a model this week. It lights up Doug Gim. It just lights up Doug Gim. For me, at least, everything I've done, minus the putting, strokes gained total, tee to green, around the green, approach. So I'm all in on the Doug Gim breakthrough this week for me. That is Andy Lack. He's been on fire lately. Don't forget to get in on the odds checker contest, link in the video description. Big money, cash prizes available, regular prizes weekly. Get in on that in the description below. Hit the link, enter the contest, play versus me and Andy for all the monies. We'll be back. Is golf going on a break, Andy?
Yeah, we've got the RSM Classic next week, and then we're done.
Okay, so we're back next week, and then we can litigate the future after that for a little. Let's keep my boy Andy on fire through the fall here, friends. So we'll have all that money to play with come for Christmas shopping. All right, for Geoff, he's Andy. We're out.